Well, I can tell you, my history goes back a shorter time than the skate park. The skate park was here before I was, before I was here. Um, the issues since I've been here, it was early in my tenure here that we had. It was restricted to skateboards and rollerblades only. There was not a lot of kids using the park. We did have our diehard kids that were coming on a regular basis. And it was not manned at that point. We did not have a monitor. Over the course of time, we had a lot of interest from kids who wanted to use other items in the park. Kids on bikes have come to my office to ask permission. Kids on scooters have come in, and there was large numbers starting to congregate after school, and it was becoming more and more of a challenge to tell groups you cannot come in, you can come in. So I wanted to do some research and find out exactly why and how and what we could do to try to accommodate as many people as possible. This is going back probably about 3 years. The township there was a pretty big incident of vandalism there. Somebody had come in at night, emptied all the trash cans into the skate park and around the skate park, broke probably about 10 to 15 glass bottles, creating quite a bit of damage. So at that point the park was locked for a couple weeks to further discuss how we were going to do it. And I think the township kind of should be commended for this, because where a lot of townships had pulled out their skate parks because they were tired of the frustration of the vandalism and the damages, we decided to reopen with a monitor. Our skate park monitor at the time was determined to be there from mid-April, April 15th through the end of October, which kind of at the time had coincided with our daylight savings. So that was the time frame that we had come up with, and at the time it was still skateboards only. A lot of groups again were coming into my office asking why they can't use the park. I reached out to a couple groups. One was the designer of the park, Spawn Ranch Skate Parks out in California, and I asked them to tell me what the park was suitable for. And I brought their findings to our insurance company, and our insurance company then made the decision that they would increase and allow more users into the park in the form of scooters. And I know it's been a little bit of a challenge, because I know some of the kids on scooters tend to be younger, and the park etiquette isn't always there in terms of when sometimes they'll cut in front of somebody unexpectedly who's trying to skateboard or whatever. So I know there's been some challenge there, but it was determined at that point JIF would allow the scooters into the park. Unfortunately, the insurance company took a hard line and said we're not going to insure the park for bikes, and that has been my biggest challenge from pretty much within the first year that I started till now. We do have insurance 12 months a year for the skate park. It's not an insurance where we only buy 6-month policy. They don't offer it that way. So the park is fully insured for the 6 months. However, in order for the park to be open, we do require a monitor to be at the park. And quite honestly, during the winter months, it doesn't always make sense to have someone out there for the couple, the 1 or 2 kids who may be skating or scootering in the winter months. So we kind of determined the best months of use would be mid-April through the end of October, which I know we do get times where we have mild days in November and December, and it's very enticing to want to be out there. But that was how we moved forward. That's what we have budgeted for in my recreation budget, is to have monitors there for those 6 to 7 month window. So that's kind of the history of how we've gotten to this point. We are currently in our off season, so it's not that we're closed and not opening the park. We're just in our off season. We're doing some repairs left over from last fall. Right before we closed the park, we had a couple of damages to the park, and it didn't make sense replacing everything before the harsh winters that we've endured the last few years. So we waited till spring do those repairs. So those are happening. The township just spent close to $9,000 on repairs, not new equipment, but just to replace some of the things that have been aging out. A lot of the decks have been worn, are chipping away, so that's something we are working on now.
Now, would you say some of the damage that's been occurring, do you think that's been aggravated by people violating the rules against maybe scooters and bikes, or has there been behavior that has been damaging that equipment? Because some people were concerned about that.
The damaging behavior that we see happens after hours. Even if we're open, for the most part, it's kids that are trying to ride when they're not supposed to. So they'll be either cutting parts of the fence, they'll throw their bikes or equipment over the fence to get into the park. So that's the kind of damages that we see during off hours. When we're in the park, the damages in the park itself, when there's a monitor there, are more use related. It's not necessarily, we had a hole in one of the ramps, which we think was from a bike peg, and then we had another hole in another ramp was from a kid who was using the equipment properly. He just came down hard in a wrong spot and just must have hit a weak spot in the ramp. And put a crack in the board. So those were the two damages we had. The vandalism type things are the trash being left behind. I try to be as lenient as I can. Our rules technically state no food or drink allowed in the skate park. However, I understand how hot it gets in the summertime because I'm there, and any of the kids who go to the skate park know that they see me there on a regular basis. I know how hot it is in there, so I'm never going to tell a kid you can't have a bottle of water in the skate park. However, if they're eating French fries from McDonald's or Burger King or pizzeria, I do ask them to sit at the picnic table that's designed out front of the skate park where the trash cans are. And for the most part, the trash has been kept pretty well maintained. I want to say last year, the kids at the park who were there, it was a couple times, you have to tell kids, you have to remind them to pick up after themselves. But that, for the most part, the kids did keep the park a little cleaner last year than we have in years past. I had 2 staff members last year that really made it a focus to keep the park clean because it's one of the guys was one of our dedicated skateboarders, and he had a really good rapport with all the kids, and he went as far as hanging up trash bags around the fence and making sure that the kids didn't have any additional excuses not to throw their stuff away. But it worked out really well. The park was pretty clean last year. Only a few times did we have, things that were left behind, pizza boxes and things that they shouldn't really have in there for many reasons. But that was...
The one more thing I wanted to touch on, the rumor mill on social media. Some people were stating that the park was going to be closed indefinitely and it wasn't going to reopen. Can you speak to those rumors?
I don't know where they start. That's not something that I'm aware of, if that's happening. Right now we're in our off season. We closed, I think, as soon as I stayed there a few extra days because we had some really nice days in November, I think. But once daylight savings hit, I think November 6th, around that time, we did shut down for the season. And we had a couple holes we had to repair, so it made sense at that point, even though it was past the October 31st date. But as far as I know, that is not happening. At the time, we had one of the damages occur, and it wasn't from misuse or anything like that. We had a monitor on site. I had a report given about how it happened, and it was pretty mild. I reached out to the company who designed the park again to just make sure that it wasn't because we've increased our use to include scooters, and they said it was really just an aging thing, that kind of a crack is typical when wood sits out in the elements in the northeastern part of the country. Places like California and Arizona, they don't have to worry so much about the harsh winters. They probably have other things to deal with from the extreme heat, but no, that once I determined that it was not an issue of use, there's no plan to not reopen. We just spent $9,000 to get new decking and everything to have it open and running for this year once again.
So it'll be on track to open up in April, and for residents to be able to make use of the park, they will be required to get the identification card. How would they get that?
They can stop here at the Recreation Department. It's a photo ID, so we do that, and that helps offset the cost of having the monitor there. The IDs are $5 your first time, and if you lose it and you need to update it, it's $1 to reprint it. And that's really just to cover the cost of the actual printer and the laminating material. So I'd say, I do want to speak to a couple things at the skate park. In years past, and some of the kids will tell you that, when I've challenged some of the kids, and like when we were having an issue with keeping the park clean, I said, if you guys can keep the park clean, we'll bring lights in. So we were able to, the police department has been very kind and generous to donate lights to the kids so they have a place to skate. And that happened once or twice, when on a special occasion, we'll bring lights in so the kids can skate late on a Friday night. My biggest challenge, and I know some of the issues that were brought up, is that kids don't like to be babysat at the park, and I kind of get viewed as the babysitter, if you will, because I'm there frequently. My goal from day one has been to try to turn the skate park into a positive, because there is a group of kids that are excluded, and I know sometimes they like to not force their way in, but it's kind of the mentality is if I can't use it, nobody should be able to use it. So my biggest challenge is if I just need people to wear helmets. I wouldn't be annoying them as much by continuously asking them to put their helmet on. And it's really for their own safety. We want people to be responsible and be able to use the park, but at the same time, I don't want anyone to ever have to suffer from a severe head trauma because they didn't want to take the time, or they didn't feel like they looked cool with a helmet on. We want them to make sure that they're safe and utilizing the park in a safe manner, so everybody wins, because we don't want anyone to get hurt in a manner where they're severely injured from a head trauma. So that's my biggest challenge. We spend a lot of time and energy reminding people to wear helmets, and I think a lot of the concern would really ease if people were just willing and cooperative with that. We've gotten better. Some of our younger kids that are coming in are wearing helmets now on a more frequently basis because they're used to it from other rules that they have in place with riding bikes and things. But I need my older kids to set the example and wear helmets, and that would alleviate a lot of the stress at the park for everyone, not just me, but for the kids too, because they don't want to constantly hear me saying, put your helmet on. So, but.
All right, excellent. Well, that was Recreation Director Jim Wioland. The skate park is not closing, and we're looking forward to another season starting in April.
And we are currently taking applications for skate park monitors. So if we have any teens that are interested in skateboarding and want to be a part of the skateboard community and be part of the park and have a say in kind of how we operate, we're always interested in having applications. We need people to be there. So we can come in, stop at the Recreation Department, tell me you're interested. We'll have you fill out an application, do a job interview, and we'll get you ready to go. And hopefully we'll have a great summer. And again, if we have students who are interested in doing more at the skate park, we'd always be interested in hearing their ideas. I can help facilitate different types of programs. We have a lot of support from our committee liaison, Tim McDonald, who is really interested in bringing some more things to our park systems and kind of rebooting our recreation department. And I think it's going to be a great summer. So if anyone's interested, stop down, get an application. We'd love to have you. And together we can work together to make this a great program, a great park facility. And I think everyone will have an equal say, and it'll be great, a great opportunity to increase our use and our fun at the skate park. So have a great summer, everybody.
If people wanted to reach out and share an idea or question, what would the best way be for them to contact the department?
You can always stop by our office. So we're kind of uniquely located on the corner directly behind the police department. We have an email, we have Facebook, so any of those methods. Our email is lacey.recreation@laceytownship.org. You can email us there. Our Facebook is Lacey Recreation. We're on Facebook, and we try to utilize social media as best we can. But anytime anybody wants to just stop by or have a concern or a question or even want to make a suggestion, we're always here.
All right. Thank you very